One of my favorite guys in history, Martin Luther. What's happening to him? He's a priest, but he's bothered by something. What? God was dealing with his heart. And in what way? He is bothered. I mean, he's almost out of his mind. Because he's realizing in Scripture, God is holy. And you can't approach Him if you have one sin. God is just, and He will condemn the wicked. And Luther, seeming the only person just about on the planet's going, but I'm a sinner. Does anyone see a problem with this? See, God was pressing upon his heart what? The wickedness of sin. You sin enough by the time you get up in the morning to getting down to breakfast to condemn your soul to hell forever. Do you realize that? That's what Luther realized. The problem is today we've taken the gospel and reduced it down to a few little things that if you say yes at the end of each question, we declare you saved. But has God ever pressed upon you how vile your sin is? The condition of your lostness, that you deserve hell. That's what Luther was going through. And he just started looking at everything in his life. And if he found one thing that was wrong, he'd go to the priest and he'd confess it. And finally the priest tells him, look, Martin, go out and do something worthy of confessing. Because the priest didn't understand why. He was lost and in darkness. But God had opened up his eyes and shown him, you are a sinner. One sin, Martin Luther. One! Not 100, not 1,000. One sin will condemn you to hell forever. And you say, well, what's the biblical basis of that? How many times did Adam and Eve sin before God condemned them and the entire human race? Once. You see, that's what God, the Spirit of God, woke up a German monk to understand that and pressed it upon his heart so much he almost went crazy. Until finally, realizing there's absolutely no hope. I cannot save myself. I'm lost. And if God condemns me right now, He is just in doing so. And then comes the great declaration. Martin, the just shall live by faith. And the glory of what God did for him on the cross was opened up. And he looked at that and found salvation. Now, there's eternities of difference between Martin Luther saying justification by faith and what most people do today. They have no knowledge of their sin. They don't think there's anything really bad about them. Jesus is just all right with me. Sure, I'll believe in Him. And they believe in Him, supposedly, and that's it, and I'm saved. There's been no true working of the Spirit of God in their heart. God has never pressed upon them the weight of their sin. They've never feared judgment. They've never thought about how wicked they are. They've never seen Christ as precious. For this reason, I call up Bill Gates and ask him out for dinner. Invite him over to the house and give him Fruit Loops. Or a piece of ham. He's probably not going to kiss my hands for the generous offering I've granted him. But I've worked in many places around this world where if I gave someone a piece of ham, they would drop down on their hands and knees and kiss my feet. Why? Because they were starving and they were needy and they were dying. You see, most young people and old people in this little evangelical thing we got going on in America, Christ is not precious to them. I had a reporter come up to me one time and he said, "Why are you always preaching about sin?" And I said, "Because I want you to love God." He was so mad at me. He said, "What do you mean?" I said, "You don't love God much. Because you don't realize how much God has forgiven you. And you don't realize how much God has forgiven you because you don't know how sinful you are. And you don't know how sinful you are because no one's told you the truth like me." You see, salvation is not just you said yes to a few questions. Salvation is a supernatural work of God whereby when the gospel is preached to you, you are struck by the greatness and the majesty and the holiness and the justice of God. And you are struck by your own sin and your wickedness and your wretchedness and your vileness. And you are put to silence because you realize there is not one thing you can offer God in order to make peace between both of you. And then Your eyes are opened up to the cross of Jesus Christ where He shed His blood for you. And recognizing that everything else in your life is dung, you cling to one hope. Jesus Christ died for me. And you trust in that.